President Trump says that it's going to be good for U.S. workers, particularly good for U.S. farmers, he says. What's your analysis? Is that accurate?
Well, this is a deal between Mexico and the United States, bilateral trade agreement, where there is a lot of reduction in overall trade barriers. But we do see some things that are supposed to help out the auto sector whenever you look at the parts of origin, where it's got to be up to 75% of a vehicle now has to be made within North America, and an average wage of $16 an hour for those workers. But in general, I think what we see is a net positive as we're reducing these trade barriers overall.
Right, and the president has said from the get-go about trade that the United States should never be in a trade agreement with any nation where we are not getting the best of that deal because we have the most powerful economy. We should not be getting the short end of the stick. Do you think that this agreement, or the beginnings of this agreement, does that accomplish the president's goal?
Well, I mean, you're right. We've got a ways to go. I mean, this is just between the U.S. and Mexico. Now the discussion happens, is Canada going to get involved as well? And we've got to have an approval by Congress and in Mexico as well, which after about 90 days. So it'll be interesting to see how this process goes forward. But I'm hopeful that we can get something done so we can continue to have the prosperity that's been supported by NAFTA for almost 25 years.
Right, and then at the same time, maybe get the good end of the bargain here. All right, talk to me about tariffs. President Trump got hacked from both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, when he levied tariffs against Mexico. Mexico levied retaliatory tariffs against the United States. And I think conservatives, in particular here, oppose tariffs in the abstract. I certainly oppose tariffs in the abstract. We can look at history, and even recent history shows us that tariffs are not good for the economy. It wasn't good when President Bush levied steel tariffs. 250,000 jobs were lost before he rolled those back. It wasn't good when President Obama levied tariffs on tire imports from China. These tariffs, though, that President Trump levied, wasn't a fan at first, but how did they play into this? Did it actually work the way the president said it would and bring Mexico to the table when they otherwise would not have come?
You know, I'm not so sure, but it sure seems like maybe that was the case. Maybe it had some sort of a role with this whole process. I mean, as you know, tariffs are nothing more than a tax. So if you tax something, you're going to get less of it. And so during this whole process, the discussion is, okay, how are American consumers and producers going to benefit or be hurt by this? And when I look at it, I think, I don't want taxes on the American people. We just had a tax cut, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Why would we be raising taxes in the process? So this could have played a role. I'm not exactly sure, but at least we have an agreement between Mexico and the United States so we can have lower trade barriers overall. And I'm hopeful that Canada will join in as well. I mean, the data really show that NAFTA has supported 14 million jobs across the United States. This is a pro-growth measure that hopefully will be continued into the future.
Right, because I think free traders want free trade. They just want a fair deal for the United States. They don't want the United States getting the short end of the stick.